Folks, welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. We are joined by our friend Noah Rothman, editor at Mediaite.com. And Noah, welcome back, sir.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for having me.
I am so glad that you wrote what you wrote the other day about the high school shooter. I went on a rant yesterday about that and also about a press conference given by the special FBI agent at the Kansas with the Kansas would-be jihadists. So we'll get to that if we have time in a second. But I mean, if this high school shooter had been a fan of the Tea Party movement or had posted as much or had posted that he disliked Democrats and they wanted to kill people and had been described by his classmates as a radical, a Republican or a right-winger, that's all we would have heard about. So none of this makes any of the news stations that I've seen or any of the news reports. And the Denver Post does talk about his Facebook posting, as, by the way, CBS News actually mentioned his Facebook posting the other day, too. But only the Denver Post quotes a fellow student as saying he was an outspoken socialist. And then they took that out of the column, and it's nowhere to be found anymore. And you wrote a great piece about this, wanting to know what the ugly mindset, as you put it, or the headline put it, is that resulted in sanitizing this shooter's political beliefs. Yeah,
and you raised some really important points there. It's always difficult to posit a negative and prove it, right? What if he had been a conservative? We don't know that because it wasn't the case. It never happened, so we can't delve into the mind of the editors who decided that it was appropriate to alter a source's quote and not mention why they did so, save for a tweet after they were accosted by users about this stealth edit. But the problematic mindset here is that the editor, Leanne Chicopola, I believe her name is, she decided that it was her and her editorial duty to remove the label socialist because, quote, it was a label the student likely didn't even understand, which leads us to believe that she's making, judgments about the mindset of this particular individual, his cognitive ability, and his ability to understand the complexity of socialism.
Doesn't say much for the high school he goes to either, does it?
Right. No, it's actually a little backhanded. But, yeah, I mean, to your point about if he had been a conservative, right, that strikes you as a problematic mindset because then she would have to make a judgment call about whether or not conservatism is such a complex social and economic organizing principle that no student could possibly understand it at the age of 18. And yeah, it's a leap of logic to believe that they would have gone so far as to do that. They just thought that this particular editor just thought that it was inappropriate because her audience shouldn't be allowed to consume that information without more context. And they couldn't add that context, so they just got rid of it.
Look, I don't know. I haven't done this, but I wonder if we go back and see the stories in that same newspaper about the shooting of Gabby Giffords, if they even mentioned that this guy, could have been influenced by Sarah Palin. I have no idea if they did or not, but, Sarah Palin's website with crosshairs was blamed immediately by the media. So, that's what I use as the basis for my saying if he were. Of course, like you said, we can't prove it, can't prove a negative or something that didn't happen. But and I know that you know that I know that would have happened.
Yeah, I mean, I did a little bit of background research trying to go over the variety of shooters who were initially blamed, called conservatives, and their ideology was blamed on their actions. And there have been at least 12 in the last 4 years, since 2009, that of all of which were initially blamed on conservatism by this or the other group with varying degrees of repute, and then retracted quickly when there was no evidence to that case. And there's so much information that was put out and retracted about the alleged Jared Lee Loughner shooting that it's difficult to track down.
Right. Brian Ross, most famously at ABC, he was a Tea Party member.
Right.
Yeah.
That was the Aurora, Colorado shooter, actually.
So, not Laughlin. Right. I'm sorry. The movie theater.
So we've just stumbled into two over the course of off the top of your head.
Yeah.
And there were many, many others. So conservatives are unfairly. It'd be a cosmic injustice if this was the case for liberals, that they're just unfairly assumed to be their ideology to be the the impetus, the primogenitor for violent outbursts.
Absolutely.
And conservatives are in a defensive crouch every time this happens for fear that somebody somewhere who decided to shoot up a shopping mall signed a fair tax petition at some point.
Absolutely. You remember the teacher who was looking for tenure at Alabama University, and she shot 6 people in a teachers' conference room or something, a lunchroom, and it was in one of the Boston papers that she was a big Obama supporter.
A hot new book by Craig Smith argues that the greenback is now at high risk thanks to our spendthrift politicians. Mark Twain said the truth is stranger than fiction. The same is true of the Great Debasement, which began a century ago with the creation of the Federal Reserve and income tax. The result, today's dollar retains just 2 cents of its original buying power. Yes, progressive politicians have engineered the largest wealth confiscation in history, creating in essence a fourth branch of government. Learn what must be done to preserve your money if the dollar crashes. The good news is Swiss America is offering the Great Debasement, a $20 value free of charge for this special radio offer.
800-818-3967.
We've been concerned about backlash since 9/11. The president, when he addressed on the day of 9/11, addressed the issue of this religion not being the target.
No, Noah, you're absolutely right. Listen, I'm up against a hard break, which you well understand. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. We'll speak to you again. Noah Rothman, Mediaite.com.